Hey, John, how do you sell a house? I want to get your opinion. Hi, I'm Bridget Sullivan Mermel, and I've got a family financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm John Shear. I've got a family financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin. And before we start talking about how Bridget can get her house sold, I want to remind all of our viewers to hit that subscribe button. That helps other people find this information on YouTube. And so click subscribe and let's talk about house selling, Bridget.
Bert Whitehead says houses are easy to buy and hard to sell. And he also said that you make money when you buy, not when you sell. So I think those things are always in my mind when I'm thinking about selling a house. So as you know, my husband and I recently bought a house, and we were in the position to be able to kind of float two houses at once. And so we recently just put our old house on the market, and we did that about two and a half weeks ago. And so we got comps, right? Our real estate agent gave us comps for how to figure out what to price it at. And that moment, the upcoming months right before we put it on the market seemed like a hot market. And so we priced it, I wouldn't say aggressively, but just not conservatively, And so then you kind of put it out there and wait and see what happens, And so it's been interesting. So what's actually happened is that the market now seems like it's a more traditional late fall market. And so it's slow. And so we haven't gotten that many people looking at it. And there just aren't that many people looking in general, as far as from what I'm hearing from other sources too. That's what our agent's telling us. And, so then it's almost hard to figure out, okay, should we lower the price? Because that seems like the biggest lever that you have is the price. But once you pull that lever, then it's gone. And I know from research that it's easy in these situations. You have a relative bias. So I think, okay, lowering the price by 2% isn't going to be that big. But actually, $10,000 is $10,000 whether you're buying a house or going on vacation,
Yep,
So
yep.
if you think about it, how many vacations can I get out of this? Or how many years worth of groceries could I buy with this price cut? Then it kind of puts it in a different perspective.
Yeah.
And it's not like in this situation, the traditional real estate market it's slow in November, December, and it picks up January, and then maybe even more in February. And so once we head into January, February, it's not like we can then raise the price again. So we're trying to figure out what to do.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that, Britt. And when you first brought this topic up, I thought, well, what do you mean? Selling a house is easy, right? There's all the demand. You got people clamoring and throwing money on your doorstep, right? That's what the word is out in the street, right? And maybe for a while, certainly that was true, but maybe not so much now, right? And so you think about like, where are you on this? It's a really interesting topic. I'm glad you brought it up with things. And hey, you're a financial planner. Well, just figure this out. Why can't you do this, right? And it's really interesting as I think about it, and that it's, even though cognitively and maybe emotionally you can give advice to other people on certain things, it can be really hard. And I've had the same experience in my personal financial life, right? Like, how do you make these decisions because the emotions get in the way, right? It's different when it's professional versus personal. So it can be challenging.
Yeah, well, if I was advising a client, I would just tell them what I just said at the end, which is 10,000. Think about what, if you're going to lower it by $10,000 or whatever, think about what else you could do with that money. And don't just think, well, that's not that much in relation to the whole price.
Yeah. Yeah, and
So
I love that topic, and we deal with this a lot, and I know you do as well. When you're buying or selling, it's well, we'll just it's just a little bit wraps into the mortgage, right? And so it's a low monthly cost, or it's only this much, and whether it's sales commissions, other expenses, different things, and you go, wait a minute, yeah, when it's $50 a month, okay, that's not a big deal, but when it's $10,000, right, that is literally vacation money, that's literally grocery money, and to be mindful of that stuff is really important.
yeah, however, we do have carrying costs for carrying the old place. So that costs a certain amount every month. And so, but although it is lower than you would expect, that's why we can do this. And that's just because we're able to get our old mortgage, down to a very low rate.
Yeah,
And we've had it for many years. So it's not like the carrying costs are huge, but they are a factor, right?
yeah.
And so, but my fear is that we lower the cost, we lower the price, we still don't sell it, and then we've just paid all the carrying costs for that 3 months anyway.
Right, right. A couple of things that come to mind here that I just wanted to share was, and I love you quoting Burt Whitehead, the guy that started the Alliance of Comprehensive Planners, right? And I've had the personal experience. You make money when you buy a property, not when you sell it. And maybe that'll be an episode for the future on some of my rental real estate mishaps. But and one of the things that I learned from Bert is that when you're in a position, you're making a sale, the first price drop, don't drop it by a couple $1,000, but get something where you're going to sell it, right, where it's going to get in a position to make a move.
Okay.
And I think that does make sense. It's like, listen, if we're going to take a haircut on this, then decide to do it. And you brought up the holding cost too, which is exactly the right thing. We've got this purchase price. Like, what do we want to get out of this thing? But then it's not free to own. And from a financial standpoint, right? Number one, you go, listen, what does it cost you to hold this for the next 2 or 3 or 4 or 6 months? And if you do that and get your current price for it, well, you've already lost that money. Geez, can you take that and just cut it off the purchase price today? Does that make it sell? Right? You need to think about that metric. The other thing, though, I wanted to bring up too is that in addition to the financial cost, of course, there's the time and effort, because you still got to think about it and you take care of the property, right? Nobody's living there if that's the case right now, and you've got the heat bill, and then what if things go wrong, and you have to think about that. So there's the financial aspect, but then there's also the time and effort and emotional aspect. And you go, there's value, where there could be anyway value in saying, you know what, I just want this thing to be gone. It's not the financially best decision to make, but it might be the right decision to take a bigger price drop and go, you know what, if it's sold by Thanksgiving, I'm really happy about this. So there's that factor too that's hard to quantify, but still meaningful and important.
Yeah, I really appreciate you bringing this up. So you're trying to talk me into a bigger price cut.
Maybe at least think about it, right? Like maybe, yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
interesting. Thank you. Okay, very good.
And sorry, just before I forget one thing, the other thing too, and you said, I thought this was really interesting, and you're probably exactly right, but I question this is, hey, let's say we cut the price now and it doesn't sell, and in January, I heard you say, well, we can't just raise the price then. And my thought was like, well, why not? Right? Why can't you change this? And that's the commonly accepted wisdom, right? As well, when this price goes down, you can't make it go back up. And that's probably right. But I go, listen, if I'm looking to buy your house and it's the right fit and the right price, what difference does that make? And again, probably makes a big difference, but it seems to me like, oh, maybe that's not quite as true as we think it is.
That's very interesting. So the other thing is that in the current market, just a few months ago, so I don't know if this is, again, you can't take a few months ago and say that's exactly the same as it's going to be right now. So that's an interesting thing about the real estate market, but it's the same with the stock market too, right? So but a few months ago, if a buyer came in and they thought it was underpriced, they would offer more.
Yep.
And I haven't really seen that in my lifetime. Like, they would offer more than what the asking price is. So we could say, if we did lower the price more, we could hope that that's the case. That if somebody came in and looked at it, that they would offer more if it was underpriced.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll tell you, and so recently we sold my dad's house, and we had similar advice to what you just described, as saying, listen, here's the range of prices, and my brother and I were looking at it, going, well, geez, let's push the top end. The holding costs for that were very low, and like, well, why not? And he said, and the opinion of the realtor was, hey, if you price it initially too high, you're not going to get enough people looking. If you price it on the lower end, you're going to get more people looking and actually get a higher than asking price offer, which doesn't make cognitive sense to me. But that's from what I've seen in it and sort of what you're describing here, and you hear people talk, go, that's has been the case anyway, and is maybe something to consider, right?
Awesome. So I think that's a great place to wrap it up. So I'm Bridget Sullivan Mermel, and I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm John Shearer. I've got a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin. And I was just thinking we might have to have people stay tuned for the next episode where we find out what actually happened with Bridget's house that she's selling. So that could be the next episode. But in the meantime, hit the subscribe button so that you are notified when that next episode comes out and on Bridget's house sale.
And don't forget that we're both members of ACP, or the Alliance of Comprehensive Planners. And we were just talking about the founder of it, Bert Whitehead. But it's a group of financial planners that kind of all think alike. And if you like how we talk and you're looking for an advisor in your area, we're both taking clients. But if you're looking for somebody who's local, you can check out acplanners.org.